morning everyone. I'm on a mission to see how much ephemera I can make out of one A4 sheet of card, and I have a few ideas here that I'd like to share with you. So let me show you what I've been doing. I've taken my A4 piece of paper, and on my A4 piece of paper I have drawn up the shapes of card that I would like to cut. And out of this I'll be able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different pieces of ephemera. I know I've done another video on this, but there are 12 different pieces of ephemera to that previous one, so I will link that other one below just in case you're wanting to do it. But for those of you that are maybe starting out or who have limited equipment, this is a lovely way to be able to build up your stash without having to have too much equipment at hand. So in preparing this, I'm very aware that we don't all have fancy equipment, and I'm keeping everything fairly simple. So all these red lines here on this diagram, those are big cut lines, so you can just cut through there all the way through. These black lines you can cut through 2 columns, and you will see that the breakdown is fairly easily. So we're going to be able to create a tag and a slotted tag, 2 swing tags, a journal card, 2 stamps and a tab to go on top of a page, a label, a file folder, a window journal card, and a tuck spot. So if you wanted to, you could take a screenshot of this so that you have the measurements, and I'll just give you a moment to do that. Then once you have the measurements, you can just measure 4, 8, 9.7 and 8 centimeters. Draw your basic lines and then measure the others in between. So it's fairly easy. The only bits of waste that you're going to have by the time we're finished are these little corners that we're going to change and the little holes that you'll cut out. So that's pretty good, I think. So now I've actually taken my piece of white card and I've drawn out all these measurements on there. And I think what I'm going to do just for speed is I'm just going to cut it with a metal cutting ruler and a cutting knife. I've got a cutting mat underneath here. I have tried working with guillotines in the past. I don't know why. I had really lovely ones back home in South Africa, and they used to sit in my cupboard. I think just because this doesn't require a lot of space and it's a whole lot quicker for me. When I had my shop, we used to have to cut lots of stuff. We always just use cutting blades, so I think it's just what you're used to. Anyway, I know that not everybody cuts straight and accurately, so you might find a guillotine is helpful. But if you don't, you can just square things up on your cutting mats and off you go. You can do that. So I'm just going to cut through all the lines that I've drawn, making sure that I have all my pieces ready. Now you could ink up your edges on your various elements, or you could leave them plain, depending on whether you want a vintage look or not. But whatever the look is that you're trying to create, you'll find that you have a whole lot of ephemera that you can use. And I think what's nice about this is that if you are working on a journal, for instance, that you'd have a lot of ephemera that you could use on a particular journal. So without too much fuss, you're really making good progress. I have an ephemera folder where when I've got time on my hands I sit and fussy cut images, and for those of you that don't know what fussy cut means, it just means cut out around the edges. In other words, cut out in details as opposed to cutting out a block, and I like to do that when I've got time. It's actually quite therapeutic. Alright, so if I take back my original drawing instruction now, you will see that I've got one larger piece of card that's going to be the file folder. I've got a journal card and one that we're going to make into a window, another piece that we're going to make into a tuck spot, and this one needs to be folded in half. So let's do that straight away so that I don't get confused. And because I feel that I might like rounded edges, I think I'm just going to round them off right away. I'm going to pop those in there, make sure that they go in between the 2 dots, and give a good old squeeze. And I'll do that on the other side as well. I find it quite useful when you're making so many different little pieces and they all have different applications, just to actually make sure that I'm doing the necessary adjustments at the time. So for instance, with these swing tags, I also want to have rounded corners at the top Maybe the bottom I'll do as well, but let me just round those quickly, and then at least I'm not going to get these muddled up and think that they're a journal card. So I'm actually punching through 2 pieces of 160-gram cards at the moment. Okay, I've gone and done all 4 corners, but that doesn't really matter. And then I have a little single hole punch here that has a heart in it, and no, I'm not going to use that one. I've got a single hole punch that's got a star. I think I'm going to use this one. Just center it and punch it out nicely, and all the little stars are kept in this little tray at the back, so if I needed ephemera for small little things I could actually use that as well. So there I've got 2 little tags where I've already rounded those corners. I've got a tuck spot, I've got journaling cards. This is going to be a label. Okay, so if you've only got a circle punch, or even if you haven't got a circle punch, you can still do this. If you haven't got a circle punch, find something that's small and round, just trace around the corners like that and you can cut it out. If you have a circle punch, turn it over and just nip out the corners. That will make a very nice looking little edge for your labels. And I've deliberately worked with plain colored card here so that I can first of all stick images on, but secondly so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. Alright, so that's going to be my label. This is going to be a tag. That's going to be a slotted tag. This is going to be a tab that might go on the top of something that's in a tuck spot, just so that I can pull it out. And with this one, I think I will also round the edges here. Little ones like this, let me open it out, then I've got more to hang on to. It's going to be a bit easier, isn't it? Alright. Quite nice to have just the blanks of these prepared so that if you are journaling you can just grab some. I like to cut up all my leftover bits of cardstock into usable pieces. Right, then the last 2 little bits here I've got are going to be stamps. And for stamps you can do 2 things. You can either use one of these pair of scissors that actually have these fancy edges, and all you would do then is just on the edge cut through, slide your design up if you need to. I like to cut the long edges first, because then if I've got a funny little point at the edge like that, I can position where I cut the shorter edges on the sides. So that's stamp number 1, and this is stamp number 2. Let me show you something different with this one. You might also want to do a curly edge on this, but if I just move this away, I've got here what is known as a dressmaker's tracing wheel, and if I just simply run my tracing wheel in a line across the edges here, forgive me, this is not very neat, I should be doing it perhaps with a ruler, but this will give me the look of perforation like that, so I would be able to stick something on there as well. So that's just an alternative way of doing that. Perhaps you're a sewer and you don't have fancy scissors, you could do it that way. So now I can check I've got all of my elements. I know that this is going to be a little tuck spot. Let me just neaten this edge here. If your punches get a little blunt, as mine clearly is at the moment, you just fold over a piece of tin foil, aluminium foil, and you just punch through that a couple of times and you'll find that you've actually got a nice piece of paper. So I'm just going to lay these out in front of me for now so that I can see what I've got. And then, surprise, surprise, I have underneath my cutting mat some examples of what I've done. Alright, so for argument's sake, what I've done with this particular, this is the window card, is I have a stamp and I've stamped on here and then cut it out and stuck some vellum on the back, and I've got a nice little bird that goes through there. With my little journal card, I've folded this one over and I have taken my my circle punch and punched out a hole here and just put a little glue on the inside edges here and stuck that down. The background here, I just took a coffee solution, quite strong, put it on the edge of a toothbrush and just splattered that. And then I have a little journal card here where I've just stuck a picture. I've kept it very simple. Here's my little label, so I'm able then to just write something on there. And here's my little tab that would go perhaps at the top of a journal card if it was tucked into a tuck spot. Maybe something a little bit difficult to get hold of, I could use that to pull it out. I've got my 2 stamps, and I've got some tags. Whoopsie. Nice birds and things. And then I have got these 2 tags. So this one here is a slotted tag. And so let me show you how to make this window card and the slotted tag. I think the other things are fairly easy for you to see. So let's get this out the way. I have here a piece of card, and I'm going to demonstrate this to you on white so that you'll be able to see nicely. So I've got a stamp which has a little window design on it. If you don't have a stamp, don't worry about that, because you'll be able to do this just by measuring out your equipment. Sorry, I just want to put a color underneath so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so I've got my little design here. I'm going to use some stays on because that dries really nice and quickly. Get the cover off, just ink it up nicely. Not too serious if it doesn't print 100%. And then I've got little hinges here, so I want to be mindful of where the hinges are. In order for me to allow myself to put an image, I'm just going to stamp it slightly over to the right, and I'm just going to press down nicely and evenly on this. And then I just normally have a piece of scrap paper at hand just to stamp off all the excess ink. Right, so to be able to cut this now, I'm going to use a craft knife, and I've just got a cheap disposable one here at the moment, and I'm just going to cut through this inside edge of the windows. I'm not cutting right to the corners at this stage, I'm just doing the longer lines, and I'll use a fine pair of scissors to cut into the corners. So I just want to draw the basics through. I want to be able to use these little squares of card in my effort to show you what you can do just with this one piece of card. So that's why I'm cutting these out. Otherwise you would be able to maybe make like an X through and then just cut out the center and just throw it away. Right, so here we go. Cutting through all these lines nicely and neatly. Just make sure that you don't cut your fingers, don't have your blades too long. Keep your fingers out the way. You can use a ruler if you need to. This one's got a slight corner. If you've not used cutters before, then don't worry about this step. You can always just take a strip of card and cut it. Right, I think I've done all the way around, not this edge here now. Right, so now I'm going to take a pair of small pointed scissors, and I'm just going to lift up a corner and just snip any little tags and things which might still be attaching this piece of card to the big body. Snip through these corners. Just a little bit of patience. Right, let's go through here into this corner. These scissors I would use normally for embroidery, but because I'm a crafter, I have multiples of different kinds of scissors that I just love using, and these have got such a nice sharp point that I have one for embroidery and one for crafting. So here we go. You understand me. I know often when I'm looking for kitchen equipment, it's not for the kitchen at all. It's to be able to use for another purpose. So just snip out these little corners. Right, now I'm going to set these corners aside, and I'm going to take a piece of vellum or tracing paper which I've cut, and obviously you're going to need to measure your own little window. I'm just going to take glue. This is just PVA glue which I've got in a little bottle with a squeeze nozzle. Just gently put a thin layer of it on. Excuse the color, I had a blockage and I stuck a pin in, and it seems to have discolored the opening, but I suppose in one sense it's good because you'll be able to see it. Right, I've just got a thin layer on there, and now what I'm going to do is just to gently press my vellum over that and just leave that to dry. This I would normally put a background on, so if I wanted to have something on the other side of the vellum to give it a bit of interest, I could take an image, a large image like that little bird, or I might decide I'd like to have a little person there, you know, staring through the window. So your options are endless. Okay, I think for the one that I did previously, I had a little bird there, so you can see that that shows through nicely. Then with the slotted card, I've drawn it all out on a piece of brown card here. So you'll see with the slotted card, it's almost like a little shutter that you would have on your home, and it's just a little card where I've taken a centimeter measurement on either side. I've drawn it out, and then 1.5 centimeters down, and I've just cut 4 little slots, and all these little windows that I've had from that window card that I cut out, I am just using now to fill those little slots. And then obviously you can decorate them like that, and stick some images on. So let me just go back to the beginning, and I'll show you again what you can make just using your very simple one sheet of A4 card. We've got that image. This is just another version of the window one. Got a couple of tags here. We've got a little tuck spot here which you could use. This is a label. This was your one tuck spot that you've got. This was your file folder that you've bent over. There's another little tag that you've got. A couple of stamps, and you could just put a postmark on those. And a little tab to go on top of a file. So I hope that you are motivated to get cracking and make some things. Sorry, I'm being a bit clumsy today. I don't know why I feel a bit rattled. I think it's the heat of these lights. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that and it's given you some ideas. Please leave some comments in this below, and if you've enjoyed the videos, I do post regularly, so please consider subscribing to my channel. Bye for now.